Right. Review. Review begins.
I think people will like this because it's King Crimson, Kev.
Yes, and people like King Crimson. Well, I hope they do. If they're watching our videos, they should be. They ought to like King Crimson.
Yeah. Did you watch the Robert Fripp and what's-her-face, Toyah Wilcox's thing from this morning?
You mean the TV show this morning? Or one came out this morning?
The one that came out this morning on YouTube.
No, I haven't seen a new one.
It's Welcome to the Jungle, I think. I don't know if it's a joke. I said, well, why is Robert Fripp playing Welcome to the Jungle and all that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, I mean he knows that's funny for his fans, but it's. I assume it's Toyah's marketing. He's doing it for Toyah's marketing. He wouldn't do it for King
What's your
Crimson's
marketing?
Well, herself, because she's a pop star, so that's they have to see her, don't they? And that's the pop thing.
Well, I just think it's an excuse for Toyah to get her nipples out. I really.
But that's well, she's a pop star, so that's the kind of thing they do, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm not sure it is that funny though.
Well, no.
Is it funny? Is it supposed to be a joke?
I mean, he's done it a few times now. That's the thing. But he can't. You can only do it once. You know, it's like they've done retro King Crimson now. They've done King Crimson, the old band playing the old songs.
Yeah.
Once you've done it, the novelty is now worn off. That's it now, isn't it? You know. So it's the same kind of thing, isn't it? The fact Fripp's image is not rejecting being famous. He's a musician. That doesn't make him a pop star. And then doing that is funny. But now he's done it. That's it. I think there was something particularly funny about Enter Sandman. And the title of the video was Enter the Sandman. So they didn't even know what it's called, really. He just learned the notes and played it in new standard tuning.
Is it supposed to be like a piss take of pop videos, maybe?
Maybe. I don't think. I think it's just them messing around, isn't it? It's just funny because it's them at home in the kitchen. Because originally it was Lark's Tongues Part 2. It was her dancing to Lark's Tongues Part 2.
Oh,
that was funny, And then it was Fracture, which she said was sounding like a mouse tap dancing. So she had Mickey Mouse ears and was tap dancing. And now obviously they've gone on to just ridiculous,
Smells like Teen Spirit.
Yeah.
School's Out.
Yeah.
Rebel Yell. Enter Sandman. Welcome to the Jungle.
Mm-hmm.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Weird. Odd.
So yeah.
Bored.
Anyway.
So yeah.
Thrak. From when people took Robert Fripp seriously and he didn't do silly things. He's a very pretentious man who sits quietly reading at all times.
He's got a really stupid voice.
Nobody knows how seriously all of that was. And is there an element of tongue-in-cheekness about him appearing as this sort of pretentious man? It was very serious.
I don't know. I watched an interview with him, from an old black and white interview from a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember where, and he did seem well into what he was saying.
Yeah, the certainly if you go back to 80s, definitely.
Yeah, I'm sure it was the beginning of the 80s. Maybe he was well into it. Like, and I was like, that seems really weird.
Yeah, it's extremely involved.
Yeah, it's like, well, why have you gone down this rabbit hole or whatever? Why have invested so much into this? And what are you getting out of it? It's sort of, it didn't really quite. I didn't really understand where he was coming from and what he was trying to achieve with it.
Yeah, because I suppose he sees, to achieve music, he's got to understand it, so he's trying to determine what music is and how that process, and actually literally, whereas most musicians don't think about that, they just do it. And the secret is to not think about it. With the Fripp, it's the opposite. It's to think about it a lot. And that's how you get there. And I suppose that's why it's different, isn't it? That's what makes King Crimson different to Metallica or whatever?
What makes King Crimson different from Metallica? That's a big question, isn't it?
He's thought about what he's going to do before he does it. That's the difference. He knows what he's doing. Sort of.
Is it though? I mean, so we're doing Thrak now, yeah, which is sort of Adrian Belew era. I mean, how much input did Adrian Belew have into making this album?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. That's what to talk about with this album, really, in that there's a lot of Belew on there, constructed around a Fripp thing. It's still, that's the thing. The actual songs are written by Adrian Belew. You know, that's not in dispute. In that, but the structure around it, more so than the 80s, is very much Fripp thing, the King Crimson thing. You know, it is the only. Is it the only the only King Crimson studio album of the 90s that's an actual full studio album that's a studio album that's called King Crimson in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
There's other stuff, obviously. It sounds like it's from the 90s.
It does.
It's recorded in real world studios because Peter Gabriel has taken over the world and everything sounds like his last album, Us, I think is his weakest album. Everyone wanted to sound like that. And it is fantastic production, but it's, and the previous two studio albums did not have fantastic production, but it is the sound of a production of an album. It sounds like music production. It doesn't sound like a band playing, and obviously I like the sound of a band playing, which is why I always go for the live stuff with these songs. And that is a shame because this is a structured, perfect album with sections and a beginning and an end and all that, well, In a Garden was never played live, and you've got the descending start and the ascending end, and it is one piece, it's one thing. So by not listening to the studio album, I miss out on that, But it has changed since the 80s, obviously. Particularly the last 80s album, which is very 80s. And I mean, King Crimson the music it should be an assault. It should assault you. When we saw him in 2016, it was like being banged over the head by a cymbal, and that was great. The relentless forward motion, a boot stamping on a human face forever. The 80s can't do that. The 80s can't do a boot stamping on a human face forever. They can have kids playing very fast riffs, very heavy, but it's not Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
And it certainly isn't King Crimson, so this is a return to the heaviness. So certainly at the time, it's a mixture of 70s and 80s Crimson. That was what it was perceived as, I think also Fripp is angry at the moment, and that's in the music. And yet I say all that Fripp was asked to do a movie soundtrack in about 86, and things in that, actually, the Thrak theme came out of, and bits of Thrak were heard in Guitar Craft performances. Adrian Belew wasn't originally asked. It was originally David Sylvian. There was an even more 90s-ness thing coming, but he didn't want to do it. And the Sylvian Fripp album was R&D for the new Crim. Sylvian Fripp was the project for Thrak, or Vroom. Long time in the making, the sort of planning of it, he had the I can't remember. Oh yeah, there was the Road to 1981. That was the thing, reviving King Crimson in 81. Then there was the Incline to 84, which was ending King Crimson. So there was a thing, I don't know what it's called, whether he named it, from 86 to 94, of the return of the Crim. I think there was an awareness that the last album, Three of a Perfect Pair, wasn't Crim enough in that sense, in the drumming and the... It has to have the effect that Michael Giles' drumming did in 1969. And Bill is a jazz drummer, and much more of a jazz drummer now. But when I say now, I mean by 1994 or whatever. And he had his point of seeing while he was driving past the village church of the double trio. So have two drummers, have as many guitarists as possible. 4 guitarists effectively, really. although they're sticks and whatever. And any keyboards there, guitar synths. So only guitars and drums allowed. The plan was originally Pat Mastelotto and Jerry Marotta, who was Peter Gabriel's drummer before. And I think the fans complained. But Bill certainly complained. It says something rude about Americans in an interview, and then Bill was back in. But what's interesting is a lot of the cool drumming on this album, people will assume it's Bill, is actually Pat. The story goes that it's supposed to be Pat Mastelotto keeping the beat, being the sensible one, and Bill ruining everything.
Yeah.
But at least some of it on that album isn't. Some of the cool drumming on that album is actually Pat Mastelotto. I think live, very much, it was Bill messing around. Some of Adrian Blue's best songs, he regrets not keeping some of the songs for his solo albums. And yet I can see what some of them really have to be King Crimson songs. People, maybe not, and yet live it was fantastic with a double trio. So King Crimson plays the music that appears. That's what that's how you describe it. And Fripp says the double trio was not what he intended, expected, or wanted. But he trusted this point of seeing sufficiently to act upon it. So he really picked that apart. It's not what he wanted, it's not what he expected, it's not what he meant to happen. But
he's going to make the best of it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've just crunched all the things I'm going to say into a quick thing at the start, really, because I think everyone's going to want to know what you think of it.
Me.
Because you've not reviewed this one, and we know you like Locks Tongs, and you really didn't like Discipline.
Yeah, which was a bit of a shock to you, Kev. What did I think of this? I think it's a good album. I was a bit concerned. I don't know. So Dinosaur, yeah. Although it's 6:38, but there is a single edit, and I guess that's the sort of poppy one.
Yeah.
I actually quite enjoyed it. I mean, this is sort of like, but it doesn't feel very King Crimson to me.
Okay.
It felt kind of. I think it's probably because it's got quite strong vocal line. I'm a dinosaur. Someone's picking my bones or whatever, or someone's digging my bones.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's actually quite good for a
really
lyric.
Good, yeah.
It's really memorable, and that makes it feel not King Crimson. It makes it feel more poppy. And actually, when I listened to it, I thought, actually, you're going to hate this, Kev, but there's an air of 90s Britpop about it.
Britpop?
Yeah, it was sort of like I'm singing along to this.
Someone digging my bones.
Yeah, that's it. Not specifically Oasis, but there's sort of like I could feel a sort of like, this is why I'm enjoying it, maybe, because there's sort of like there's a poppiness about it, and maybe Walking on Air as well. I mean, Walking on Air is a fantastic song.
Yeah.
And then 2 songs later, you're at Thrak via Baboon.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a sharp change.
Yes, yeah.
For my money, I mean, Thrak is a decent track, but it's not Lark's Tongue and Aspic Part 2, which is what you would need to make this one of the very, very best King Crimson albums, I think. And you've got like Vroom Vroom at the end and all that kind of stuff, and it's all, I mean, you say about Thrak, but I find it quite a pleasant listen, actually. The whole album.
It is, isn't it? Isn't it weird?
It's
called Thrak, and they got 6 of them make as much noise as they can. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's quite an easy listen, and therefore I quite enjoyed it. And I enjoy it probably. So Lark's Tongue in Aspic, yeah. It's a masterpiece. It took me a long time. So things like Book of Saturday.
Right.
And Exiles, it took a long time for me to really get into that. I mean, there was the high points for me were Lark's Tongue in Aspic, and obviously the talking drum leading into Lark's Tongue in Aspic Part 2. I actually think the other songs on Thrak are a lot easier on the ear
Oh yeah.
than the non-Lark's Tongue in Aspic tracks. So I actually think it's an easier album to listen to than Lark's Tongue in Aspic, simply because of that. Because you can stick it on, listen to it, and enjoy it, and not be,
What the hell's that?
yeah, what the hell's this?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm quite impressed with it. And this is my second go at it because obviously you tried to make me listen to the whole box set,
Soundtracks. That didn't work.
and I just didn't really. I just couldn't penetrate it. You know, it was sort of like what the.
Disc 1. Jurassic
Yeah.
track. Jamming.
Well, I should imagine my tastes have changed a little bit since then as well. Probably a little bit more. I can listen to these things a little bit easier now.
Yeah, I mean you're very much attuned to the Frippness on here.
Yeah.
So that's going to make things much easier.
I kind of feel like, you know, how I don't really understand, you know, wanting to listen to live performances. I don't think a live performance would help here, other than actually going to see it, go and watch it. I would like, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Thrak live.
No.
But that would be quite interesting.
Yeah,
I think.
definitely.
I think it would become even more if you could perform it with 3 drummers. I don't know if you could.
Yeah, I don't. They've done. Obviously, there's been so much now live stuff. I don't know whether they've played it or not. The answer would have been no, they've not played this. I don't know now. Who knows now? So many shows of every song ever. Probably.
Well, it'd be kind of cool because you got the stereo thing going between the 2 trios, haven't you?
Mm.
And that would be quite interesting live.
Yeah.
Whether it would actually do something for you, I'm sure it would.
Yeah, I mean, Thrak is very much the thing that came alive live. Obviously, this. I can't remember the quote, but saying it sounds like a nursery rhyme on the album compared to the live.
The live.
And,
Dun, dun.
Adrian
Yeah.
Belew uses a drill on the Japan show.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
There we go. Yeah, I do think. I mean, I think these are some of the best Belew songs, and I think you're right. Yeah, comparing it to Lark's Tongues is a thing. That's how we can review it. And I do think the Belew songs are better than the John Wenton and the other guy, the lyric writer guy whose name escapes me, who wasn't in the band. He just wrote the lyrics.
Yeah.
You know, One Time is a better song than Exiles.
Yeah.
Maybe that's really controversial. Maybe there's people at home going, oh, which is, I think, more of a thing now. I think there's been more of a revival of 70s Crim, I think. Maybe sort of 5 years ago or so, that was, you know, there was more of a Thrak thing.
Oh, Kev, I've only got 3 minutes of recording left.
That's probably about right, isn't it? I bet we can do that.
Okay.
So yeah, now I don't know what to say. Yeah, and One Time and Walking on Air, Dinosaur. They're such good songs, and you've got Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream, the Crimson Blues. Much less jarring than the World's Might Oyster Soup Wax Museum, which was the next one. So that's the thing, you know. Ba-boom. I think that's a Bill thing. I think Bill, you know, presented with Thrak, what does the drums do? And he came up with ba-boom, and it's there is a Max Roach thing called boom. So I can believe Bill would say, okay, that's boom, but this is ba-boom. You know, and again live. You know, there was an EP. Tony Levin was touring with Peter Gabriel the same year, so he must have gone straight from In Your Eyes to Vroom, which is amazing. But the idea was the EP funded the recording of the album.
Cool.
Marine 475 is the Lloyd's Insurance Syndicate, which was a disaster. There was some natural disaster, and they lost all their money. And EG had put all their money in this insurance syndicate and pissed all Fripp's money up the wall, basically. That's what endless grief is. So this period is where Fripp is fighting against EG and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a suggestion that Baloo, he was just going along with it rather than really being convinced by Thrak and stuff like that, which is the thing, you know. It's also the end of Bill, you know. He does talk about being tired on tour, and I think he specifically wrote to Fripp to be asked to be included because I think he knew being back in Yes was a disaster. Creatively, it was a disaster, you know. And that was the birth of DGM. It's a 5-egg album.
Yeah, 5-egg, I agree.
Yeah. That's it. Thrak. We've done the Sam Thrak now.
We're going to do thingy next week, aren't we?
I don't know, are we?
Yeah, we were talking about it last week. Tom Sawyer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. I've got to order that. Good idea.
Yeah.